Daniel Kane. The doctor, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on this morning's Gaming Morning Show. And we're here to talk to you about a study that you had published in Sport Journal. Dr. Kane's an assistant professor of tourism and hospitality at CUNY Kingsborough Community College. And this particular study looked at community college students possibly becoming interested in real-life sports because of video games. So let's start with that. Give us an overview, please. What was the study trying to determine specifically?
So I tried to determine if community college students became interested in, or play a real-life sport by playing sport video games. I wanted to know that, is it possible for you to interact with a sport video game first and then become interested in maybe becoming a fan of a team or wanting to play a real-life sport?
And what were some of your findings that you found in your study?
So what I did is I came up with 4 research questions. First was, did community college students learn about a sport by playing sport video games? 2, do playing sport video games enhance a community college student's knowledge about a real-life sport? Did community college students become a fan of real-life sport by playing sport video games? And then 4, does playing sport video games increase interest in playing the real-life sport? And what I found was that all the responses were positive, that sport video games have somehow influenced community college students to interacting with real-life sports. For that first question, did community college students learn about a sport by playing sport video games? A total of 86.13% learned about the rules of a sport by playing sport video games. A total of 92% learned about real-life players or teams in a league by playing sport video games. A total of 88% identified that playing sport video games enhanced their knowledge of a real-life sport. 72% feel that playing a sport video game helped them become a fan of a real-life sport team. 73% feel that playing a sport video game helped them become a fan of a real-life athlete. And 87% feel that playing a sport video game increased their interest in playing a real-life sport. So what I saw was that if I'm able to put a sport video game in front of you, and you've never come across, I'll use an example, soccer, because that really helped me build a foundation for this study, and you're not familiar with soccer, I should be able to put FIFA in front of you, hand you a controller, and that should start teaching you about the rules of the game. Maybe it picks up, maybe you find interest in a player, maybe you start off by playing a team and there's Ronaldo playing, right? And then all of a sudden you're dominating the game and you become a fan of Ronaldo. So what we really can learn from this is it is possible first to play sports video games to gain and build that interest in real life sports. And what I really find amazing is if you think about it, internationally, American sports might not be available, right? They call football soccer overseas. You might not be able to play American football in London. You might not be able to play it in Spain, other countries. But Madden is sold all over the world, right? Millions of copies are sold everywhere. So that means people are playing Madden even before they get a chance to play a real life sport, especially American sports.
And that's fascinating. And you mentioned some possible follow-ups to a study like this. Are there any other populations that you're looking at redoing this study with?
So for this study, I had to create the population to begin with, because how many people do we know out there that really have played sports video games before, maybe even before viewing a real life sport? So what I'm interested in doing is analyzing really a sports introduction class. I used to teach one at CUNY Kingsborough Community College for about 8 to 9 years. And my students would constantly ask me, about soccer. They would ask about rugby. I would try to introduce international sports. They primarily liked the major 4 sports, right? Basketball being their favorite. So what I discovered and I really thought about is, what if I was to bring in an Xbox and I hook it up to the screen? And here, now I say, here's the controller, and, let's look at soccer. Let's analyze it. And I know me personally, one of the hardest things for me to learn was offsides in soccer. I don't know if you played FIFA. I don't know if you're big FIFA players, but that to me always drove me nuts. I would pass the ball, I would send the ball flying, and then next thing I know, I would lose out on the ball. Or I used to play rugby on the computer. I don't know if you remember the old 90, I think it was 92 or 93 rugby PC game, not to give away age. But, you know, what's a scrum? What does this mean? So really the population that I'm interested in is looking at these sports management students and seeing that if I could use video games, maybe sports management programs can use video games, especially with the rise of esports, to get people interested in sports. Because unfortunately, as you see through COVID, right, sports has kind of taken that hit, right? There's a lack of fans at home games. For a while, there was no sports, but guess what? Here we are sitting at home. I watch you guys play video games all the time. Why can't we just have esports or play Madden or FIFA and call that maybe an athletic class, right? Maybe somebody isn't physically capable of playing sports, but guess what? They could be an esports star and they could be great at Madden or FIFA. So really the populations are endless, right? The biggest issue from a researcher's point of view is how do we find these populations? How do we really create these populations and say that this sample, these limited amount of people that I could find are really going to represent the population, everybody.
Right.
Awesome. So it sounds like you're an avid gamer then, especially going back to the old rugby games. How big of a gamer are you? Do you enjoy playing games outside of doing the research, or are you do you have a favorite game, favorite genre? Kind of how are you in the gaming world?
So I always grew up gaming. I had the original NES, Atari, and I've always been a diehard gamer. I don't know if you've had a Blockbuster where you grew up, but back in the day, Blockbuster ran a competition, and I won my local store's competition. Who would have thought years later you could actually go on to win money? I won a year free of rentals at Blockbuster.
Awesome.
In high school, I was a student tech, and we took over a room, and on a T1 line was able to play the original Counter-Strike.
Nice.
And that was my high school years, playing the original Counter-Strike. And now my playing video games has kind of altered. I'm not 100% big into multiplayer online games, but I love when people come over, you know, pre-COVID, sit down and play right next to me. I have been big into sports games. First-person shooters, I'm not that good in anymore, although with my origin in Counter-Strike, I'm that guy that will be on your team that maybe goes 2-30, right? That you're picking up. My brother-in-law, Jason Gulick, is really great at Valorant and these games, and he picks me up if I need to play, or he'll help his buddies out. But honestly, I've been hardcore into the Oculus lately. I am all about VR gaming at the moment, and I
That's
think
really cool.
that's where my research is going to lead, especially with sports and the travel industry moving forward. So, I mean, I have my Oculus right here in the background. I've been diving in. There's so many great games on Oculus. It's amazing.
Well, Dr. Daniel Kane, we certainly appreciate you taking time for Gaming Morning Show this morning. We will share the link to the study that was published in the Sport Journal, and if we need more information, we are sharing your Twitter as well. I really appreciate you taking the time. I'm also learning the VR world right now with my Oculus, so hopefully, or maybe perhaps I'll see you out in the VR world someday. Dr. Daniel Kane, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.